Welcome to NoBS Podcast, the gaming news podcast where we ditch sugarcoating and give it to you straight. I'm Blake.
And I'm Steve.
And if you're looking for real talk without the BS, you've come to the right place. Before we jump in, don't forget to stay connected with us. Follow us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Check out our YouTube channel at NoBS Podcast GG and be sure to hit that subscribe button. We're also on TikTok at NoBS Podcast GG throughout the week, so make sure to stop on by and say what's up. Love what you're hearing? Show your support by liking this episode, dropping a comment with your thoughts, and subscribing to keep up with all our future content. This week we focus on WoW's 20th anniversary, Steam Deck, PlayStation's execs and the collapse of creativity, the end of the Killzone series, Bandai Namco's boredom rooms, and Roblox's policy changes regarding our youth. Alright, let's cut to the BS and get into today's episode. Welcome everyone to the NoBS Podcast. I hope everyone's had a great week, and to hop into everything, how's your week been, Steve, and any games you've been playing recently?
It's been good. I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft, hardcore classic specifically. I had some friends that wanted to try it, and it's been fun. A little bit challenging at times. It's the spawn rates are crazy high, and sometimes you end up in situations where it's like the only thing to do is die. So a lot of restarting and a lot of doing the same content over and over again. How about you?
So I'm still getting over this cold, but I actually just bought the Call of Duty Black Ops 6 yesterday. So I was played that for about 2-3 hours already, and I was kind of quickly reminded of like how old I am and how bad I am at the game, because I was just getting mopped all over the floor by these younger players. I did also play a little bit of WoW. I've been playing a little bit of the 20th anniversary, and so it's been kind of filling up my week.
I was watching clips of Call of Duty, and it looks like the movement is kind of crazy. Like it looked almost like I know you haven't played Warframe, but it looked very Warframe-like, where you're able to fly around and aim while you're flying and shooting and doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah, there's no like flying or nothing like that in there, but like I was talking to Megan about this actually earlier. I said the game just kind of felt different. It didn't feel like a Call of Duty. The guns were like big and clunky and just wasn't. I don't know. I'm still gonna play, because like I said, I'm a big Call of Duty player. But I just the movement and the graphics they don't feel 2024 to me. It feels like I'm playing like a old Black Ops 1 game.
Really?
Yeah. So to hop in this, man. So WoW is celebrating its 20th anniversary this week and next week, I think. So over the past 20 years, there have been 10 expansions since the release of Vanilla in 2004. Now, for this event, there's like a bunch of this currency, these tokens that are earned by doing quests and certain events with the games, and these tokens are being used to purchase, which I thought was really cool. The old T2 sets, as well as some cool mounts and toys. So, how do you feel about like this whole 20th anniversary thing? And do you have a favorite T2 set?
I think it's pretty cool. I think it's really good to see some of these old sets. Like I love the Paladin Judgment set. Like that's one of my favorite transmogs, and I've been trying for a long time trying to get the full set running. I think it's Blackrock Deaths, right?
Yeah, and Paladin's by far the most beautiful T2 set of all of them.
And having the ability to kind of get that is pretty cool. I think the biggest controversy going around right now is that $90 mount, and yeah, it's when I first saw the mount, I was like, oh wow, this looks super cool. I was like, let me just go into the shop and see how much it is. $90. I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. And to be honest, like I'm not against like paying top dollar for something like that, because I think if this had come out maybe like 4 or 5 years ago when I was super into World of Warcraft, I definitely would have purchased it without even thinking about it. But right now, when I'm at a point where WoW I'm not spending as much time on WoW as I used to, and not enjoying the game as much as I used to. But it's still a little crazy to see that.
So did you happen to hop on, and have you like participated in the anniversary event at all?
I've done a couple things. I've done some of like the I can't remember what it's called, the mount off thing. I did that.
Yeah.
I did the transmog thing. That was pretty cool.
It's I just wanted to mention this real quick. So it's so funny you talk about the $90 mount, because I actually bought it, but I just converted gold to WoW tokens, and WoW tokens to the BattleNet balance. But it was going around. Did you hear that WoW that Blizzard banned like a shit ton of accounts after they had purchased the mount? So like all like the botters and stuff like that, they released this mount. All these people bought the mount with gold that they had turned into WoW tokens and into currency, bought the mount, and then WoW permabanned their accounts right afterward.
Really?
Yeah.
I saw that there was basically a scarcity on WoW tokens too for a while. Like there just weren't enough WoW tokens going around.
Oh, you had to, so like it was funny too, because I was sitting there at the auction house for a while, like just trying to refresh it, and it's like in between refreshes you have to wait a minute in between every one, and there were people that were sitting there for hours just trying to buy a WoW token, because the WoW tokens actually spiked up quite a bit. They have dropped back down, but there was a script that I found on Reddit that I was just pressing it, and it would automatically like grab the first one that was available to me. So I got, all 5 or 6 of my WoW tokens in the matter of like 5-10 minutes. But people, we were sitting there for hours, dude, waiting for them.
Yeah, I was thinking about going that route too, and then I realized it would basically be all my gold between all my characters combined. So I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily something I want to do. So I'm still kind of on the fence as to whether or not I want to purchase it. And it's a super cool mount. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the mount looks sick and the concept of it is awesome. Like, I love the idea of having an auction house and a mailbox with you at all times.
Yeah.
I'm not super big into farming and doing all sorts of stuff like that anymore within the game. So I don't know how much use it would actually be outside of just like riding it around.
Yeah, but it's one of those, you got to get one just to get one, because it's almost like, you remember the whole meme going around, if you didn't have early access, you were like one of the poors.
Yeah.
it's going around like that in trade chat and everything like that. Oh, everybody's just mad because they're poor and can't get it.
Yeah, no, I saw people going around, like whenever someone would see someone with that mount, they would just be like, oink, oink, pay pigs, calling them pay pigs. And so I mean, it's don't get me wrong. Like I said, if I was in a spot where I was playing the game a lot more and actually would use the game, or would use the mount the way it's supposed to be used, I definitely wouldn't even think about purchasing it. Like I said, I just don't play WoW as much as I used to. And for me, the $90 price tag is another game that I could buy, and I'd rather buy another game.
So it was funny too, because there was a little bit of a meme going around on the WoW forums and Reddit about how the release of this patch was like one of the buggiest patches that have ever been released. But it's all good though. They have a $90 mount available, because like they had certain classes like BM hunters, MM hunters, LE shamans, just completely broken, like one-shotting things. It was a pretty shit patch that they put out. So they had to do maintenance like the very next day. And people were just so fucking pissed that they were like, oh, what a great time to put out this mount. So do you think that like having these anniversary events bring back a lot of old players? And do you think that WoW has another 20 years of being around?
It definitely brings people back. Like I said, I think the big thing is, and we've talked about this, in links before, how much of a drug nostalgia is. When you see things that you used to do when you were a kid, or you see things from your childhood, like you tend to kind of get drawn to it. So when people are seeing some of these old, whether it's mounts, gear sets that are very difficult to get at times, and now you're able to get it a lot easier just by grinding, doing some like small events, and that honestly don't take a whole lot of time. Like you could spend an hour and you can get everything done and get all your tokens, and you could probably get everything that you want if you really tried. I think that brings a lot of people back. And 20 years, I mean, it's tough to say. I think the MMO space in general is kind of a dying breed. it's crazy to say because WoW still gets like I think they still have probably like 4 or 5 million subs, which is huge. Like they're still making a shit ton of money. It's just whether or not like this type of game will be able to survive in the future. I think we're kind of moving into a world where games are trying to kind of be like an all-in-one thing where you can kind of just do everything and anything on these games, kind of like how Fortnite has their different game modes that you can play, and you can basically play whatever you want on Fortnite. Same thing with Roblox, Grand Theft Auto, stuff like that. And I'm interested to see which route kind of Blizzard continues to progress with World of Warcraft. I think adding all these extras like classic and hardcore and season of discovery, I think that kind of gives them an avenue to target these other markets that they normally wouldn't get with just retail. And they've been pretty smart in identifying that and really kind of going to that point.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with you. I mean, 20 years seems like a long time away from now, but it's really not. I mean, we would be, like 53, 54? I mean, I don't know if I'd be playing WoW. And, I mean, you really don't see a whole lot of new blood coming in the game. Like you said, they got games like, Fortnite and Roblox and Grand Theft Auto that has all these other games, built into it. So
it's just the... Sorry. It's MMOs just don't give you that reward, that instant reward that you're kind of accustomed to with games like Fortnite. Like in Fortnite, you get 1 or 2 kills and you're instantly rewarded. Like, okay, I did good. World of Warcraft and MMOs in general require so much grinding just to be able to get to play the game that you want to play. Like the leveling aspect of it, like, that's cool and all, but if all you're doing is leveling and that's all you enjoy, then MMOs are kind of not the game for you, I would say. I think the beauty of an MMO is there is a lot to do, and there's a lot of different things that you can kind of do, but a lot of it is kind of predicated on your end game and what you do at max level. If there's not enough to do at max level, people tend to kind of get bored, but at the same time, it's like, if the route to get to max level is just so big and so much, it's gonna sway a lot of players to kind of move away from the game.
No, I agree with you. All right, so for our next one, man, Valve mentioned in an interview that they're not going to be releasing yearly refreshes on its Steam Deck, as they feel that it's not fair to the customers. They made mention that it makes no sense for them to do it, to push these upgrades out every year that are only incrementally better. And the community has shown a lot of praise to Valve over this, stating that, they're extremely glad that Valve is focusing on quality instead of rushing out new systems. So what's your take on that? Do you think that's a good thing that they're like, yeah, hey, we're not going to be releasing, these new handhelds every year or so, or we're going to, make sure we're putting out better product?
Yeah, I think that's super cool to see when a company is really kind of focused on what the consumer wants and the consumer needs. I think they kind of realize that you don't necessarily need to upgrade every single year. People, especially coming from like PC gaming, like people tend to kind of have one piece of equipment for 5-10 years before they even ever decide to upgrade. And that's kind of one of the weird things with the handheld movement is, you tend to kind of see an upgrade almost every year with iPhones, Samsungs, et cetera. And I think they kind of realize like it's so difficult to release another iteration of the same thing, and because you have to do better every single time. Yeah. If it's not better and you're not really providing any kind of value to the consumer, the want and the need to upgrade is not going to be there, and it's just going to diminish the total perception of the brand.
Yeah. Now, do you think that companies like, Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, all them, that they push out their consoles too soon?
Not necessarily, definitely not anymore, I would say. Like Nintendo has done a pretty good job with, like the Switch has been around for, I think like 7-8 years before, they've even kind of started talking about the Switch 2. Sony, you had the PlayStation 5 for a while before they even dropped the other versions of it. I think it's more so, like I said, with the quote unquote handheld market, because I think a lot of them kind of tend to get lumped into like the mobile market as well.
Yeah.
Where you kind of see a new iPhone every single year. I'm not necessarily familiar with like the ROG. I know Asus has like their own version of like the Steam Deck, like the ROG machine or whatever it's called. I'm not 100% sure what it's called, but they have their own thing, and I don't know if they're releasing it yearly. But again, it's cool to see when a company is really like they want to do good for their consumer, and they understand like, hey, it doesn't make sense for us to release a new version every single year and kind of almost force people to need to upgrade or to want to upgrade. Because a lot of the times when people upgrade, like people with iPhones that want the new iPhones, it tends to be really just FOMO based. Like people just want to have the new thing because it's the new thing, and everyone's going to get it. Everyone's going to have it. And if you don't have it, you're basically like a nobody. Kind of similar to how we were talking about, like with the World of Warcraft thing. Yeah. You're part of the poor as if you don't have the new thing. And I think even iPhone to an extent, I think I read something that they're kind of moving away from the yearly release market because they're seeing less and less people upgrade because
who has the money to drop $700-800 plus on a phone every single year? And it's like the upgrades are minuscule.
Yeah, it gets harder and harder, and like you said, you need to do something. You need to shake something up to make you want to upgrade. Like adding a new camera isn't necessarily gonna, at least not for me, is gonna make me want to upgrade. Like I'm fine having the same phone I've had for a couple of years as long as it still works. And it's very similar to like the Steam Deck. Like I have a Steam Deck and I love my Steam Deck. And if a new Steam Deck came out, I definitely wouldn't purchase it unless mine kind of broke.
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of reading on it, and basically like the general consensus of a lot of people who already own the Steam Deck was basically that the Steam Deck, quote unquote, 2 would have to have like some pretty powerful features if they were to consider upgrading it as the original one. Cause I don't have one, but they said the original one, it's doing just fine in terms of performance. And I think I was reading on that same article that they're like, yeah, the Steam Deck 2 is like, quote unquote, in development, but the technology is just not there to really make it, ready yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think eventually they're going to want to do something where you can play everything in Steam's marketplace. And I know I was seeing a lot of people kind of concerned with Steam going this route because Valve doesn't really have any of their own franchises anymore, quote unquote. Like, they had Team Fortress, Mass Effect, and all that, and Deadlock coming out, but they don't really have that, like, Nintendo, they don't have the Mario, they don't have your Uncharted, Halo, et cetera, but I don't think they really need it. I think Steam is such a big platform that they're completely fine just selling other people's games and not really having their own thing. Like, if they want to make games, they can make games, but at the same time,
they're the biggest digital like storefront for video games.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. and they've been around forever. It's, I think Steam in general, and I think we talked about this in the past too. It's, I think it's the best. Like there's no other platform that gives you the opportunity to try a game and you dislike it, you can return it. Like if you buy a new game on the Sony store or the Xbox store, you don't like it, you can't return it. Even if you played it for an hour, 30 minutes, whatever, it's, you're kind of stuck with it. And Steam gives you that option. It's like, okay, I don't like it, let me return it. Okay, there's new game just came out, let me look at the reviews really quick and see what other people are thinking. And on top of that, you also have the whole mod and community workshop aspect of it, where it's like games where you're able to make custom maps or custom game modes. I can just quickly go into the workshop, subscribe to that workshop, and now I can play this.
So you're able to purchase the games on the Steam Deck too?
Yeah.
Do you think more companies should have handhelds? Like imagine like a Blizzard handheld where you're able to play WoW, or I know you could do Hearthstone on your phone, but like what if they had a version of like a Steam Deck or an Xbox version where you're able to play all your games that you've purchased or downloaded on your Xbox that you could play on your handheld?
I definitely think it's coming. Like I know Sony is trying very, very hard to break into this market. I think Xbox is kind of going a different route, more so with cloud gaming, because I think they've kind of realized like they've lost the console wars, and they're not necessarily going to make any impact anytime soon unless they get some crazy big IP that is Xbox exclusive, which again, less and less games are becoming Xbox exclusives because of the fact that not enough people are purchasing Xboxes. Yeah. But they're kind of trying to go the route of cloud gaming, where you can play on like a Fire Stick, you can play on your computer, you can play on your TV, whatever. And I think that's good. I think that's huge. But I know I read something saying that they want to look at the handheld market. So I'm definitely interested to see what they do.
Yeah, but now PlayStation has tried it, haven't they, with or Sony with the old PSPs and stuff like that?
Yeah, it didn't do as well. I think the big thing that companies need to look at is not necessarily making a standalone handheld. Yeah, which is what PlayStation did. I'm not 100% sure how their new version works. I think it's similar to where you can stream it on your, like if you have a PlayStation 5, you can stream it on your handheld, but that kind of requires you to have a PlayStation 5, versus where if you just want to buy the handheld and just play the PS5 games, you can't really do that. Yeah. But I think you need to have the ability to play both just on the handheld if you just want the handheld, or play on the main console if you want to play on the main console and kind of take it with you. I think the Switch does it perfectly. It's an all-in-one thing that if you want to take it with you and go play wherever you want, you can take it with you. Or if you want to set it up and play on your TV, you can play on your TV.
I agree. Yeah, I think more people too need to just stick to what Valve's doing. Like you said, like the iPhones and stuff like that, just kind of slow your roll with putting it out. I'm thinking about getting a Steam Deck. Well, actually, Callie's been kind of on me about like a Steam Deck or a Switch. I've been thinking about getting her a Switch. Either one of those for Christmas.
You should definitely get her a Switch. I would say like the Switch is like the perfect console, especially for kids and families. It's just, there's so many different options to play and a lot of options to play together, which I think is huge. Like in any household where you have multiple people playing games, like there's just so many different games that you could play together without the need for any extra equipment. Like you don't have to buy an extra controller because it automatically comes with two Joy-Cons that you can turn into two separate controllers. You can play Mario Party, you can play Mario Kart, and you don't even need to plug it into a TV. You can just play it right on the Switch, and it's
you
awesome.
Can also hook it up to it. It's like if we wanted to play in our living room, we can like hook it up to our TV and play together on the TV, right?
Yeah. It has a stand, or you could just plug it directly into it, and I love my Switch. Like I have the only consoles I mean realistically the only console I purchased from the new gen was the Switch, and again a large portion of it was the games that are on that console specifically, as well as like the versatility that kind of comes with a Switch.
Well, hopefully she doesn't listen to this episode to find out that I've been thinking about getting her one.
Yeah. The good thing is the Switch isn't super expensive too, so it's a much much easier or much cheaper alternative to gaming, because the Steam Deck is going to run you like $500-$700 depending on which version you go.
Yeah, but I could always just link it to my Steam. And then that way, all the games that I've already purchased instead of having to go out and buy new ones.
True.
Or I'll just have her link it to your Steam since you got so many damn games.
Well, you have the family thing now. You can like say you and your brother want to create like a family thing on Steam. You can share your games between each other.
Really?
So so you can play any, like say me and you decide to do it. You can play any games in my library. We can't play them at the same time. But say I want to let you borrow like Dead Rising or something, and you want to play that game, you can go on, download that game and play it, and yeah.
Damn, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's one of the really cool things that Steam does that I think more companies need to do, and it kind of brings you back to like that old school mentality of gaming, where if you have the disc with you and you want to go play at your friend's house, you can just take the disc with you and play it there. You don't have to carry your whole, you don't have to carry your PC or laptop to do that.
Yeah, but I don't want to share with Brett. So, before we get into our next topic, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG and on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. Also, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, a former PlayStation exec by the name of Sean Layden says that there is a collapse of creativity in the gaming industry and that relying on blockbusters is a quote-unquote death sentence. And I think what he means by this is that too many games make clones of, or very popular games, and they see the success of these games, and they think, well, if we make, a copy of it, then, we can make this similar amount of money in the same time. Now, I have to kind of disagree in that relying on the whole blockbusters is a death sentence, because I think having multiple games in the same genre is healthy and it promotes competition. Like, imagine if Fortnite was the only battle royale. They can get away with doing whatever they want, as the battle royale fan base would have no other options but to play their game. And I also don't think that there's a lack of creativity or a collapse of creativity. I think that there is a lack of companies putting out good games, and that they're rushing to put these games out in order to make money instead of, making sure that they're putting out a well-polished game. So what do you think about him basically saying, oh, there's a collapse of creativity and these games need to stop trying to mimic these overpopular games?
I definitely agree with him in a sense. Like he knows a thing or two about blockbuster games. With he was kind of heavily involved in the PlayStation 4 era of Sony. I think a lot of the times now companies are just trying to make something bigger, something better. And in the past, it was, if your game cost $100 million to make, it was almost like there was no way it was going to fail. It was just too big. The graphics looked too good, and people were going to purchase it and enjoy it. One of the things that he was kind of talking about is how he has been in plenty of meetings where the first thing that these companies are trying to pitch to him is their monetization strategies. And he was basically like, if this is the first thing that you're thinking of when you're pitching me a game, he's like, you just need to leave. And it makes sense. Like, I think more and more games that are coming out, like, they're trying so hard to figure out a way to monetize it, to make money, to whether it's fund the current game or fund the next project, that they kind of tend to lose that creativity aspect of the thing. Like, back in the day when people first started making games, like, they didn't start making games because it was going to make money. They started making games because they wanted to do something cool. And I think that's kind of a lost art in the gaming industry now. Like, this is why you're seeing like games like Concord that came out that cost $400 million to make and just completely flopped because it was just another generic copy of other games that are already out. And you kind of see the same thing with battle royales. You see battle royales coming out left and right, shooters coming out left and right, hero shooters, MMOs, et cetera, and games just constantly flopping because there's no, people aren't trying to do anything new. And he was kind of talking about how he wants to see more of these companies kind of focus on AA games, bring back the 20 hour game. You don't need a game that's 60, 70 hours long and just crazy graphics. Like, you just need a good game, a good story, and that's all you need.
Yeah, I was reading, I guess he left PlayStation in 2019, so I kind of wonder if he was still the executive over there, if they would have never like put out Concord, if he'd been like, no, there's too many of these games, let's not do this.
Yeah, who knows? Like, that would have been an interesting thing to see if he would have been able to kind of sway the Sony execs away from it. Because again, like, I think Sony in theory thought that this was just too big to fail. There's so much money thrown into it. This was going to be their Star Wars, their Halo, their universe that they can kind of tap into whenever they needed a spark. And it just completely backfired on them.
So you actually agree when he says like there's a collapse of creativity?
I mean, if you think about it, like, most games that are coming out are just kind of like a recycled carbon copy of another game. A lot of the games that are coming out now are either remasters or basically like a revamp on a game that has already been out. You very rarely see games that are kind of like a brand new thing. that are doing something different that games you haven't seen in gaming.
Yeah, no,
and that's why when you see games like that, they tend to kind of just blow up. Like when Elden Ring first came out, like that was like something that you haven't seen in forever, like an open world Souls game where it's like there's so much versatility and so many different things that you can do to change the way you play the game. Then you had a game like Black Myth Wukong that, again, something that hasn't been done in a long time, and just people just loved it. People ate it up. Like
but gaming's been around for how many years now? Like 50, 60 years. Like, you don't think like that eventually we're going to run out of ideas of games?
I think eventually you will, for sure. I think it's like anything, like movies. Like, people get tired of seeing remakes of old movies and basically trying to do the same thing over and over again. You want to see new things, and you want to see people do things differently. I think like anything in the world that requires a sense of creativity, like, yeah, there's going to be, whether it's imitations or some sort of copying from others. And I think it was Stephen King that said that it's like all writers kind of take something from each other, and you just realize how to take that portion of it and just make it your own. And that's what you have to see with gaming. Like, yeah, there's like a shooter is going to be a shooter no matter what. Like a first person shooter is going to be a first person shooter, but it's like what you do in that first person shooter that's going to kind of differentiate you from the rest. Whether it's the story is going to be a lot more exciting or immersive, and you just have to figure out a way to do something different and not necessarily try to just throw something out there. And again, I think the big issue is all these companies are focusing on just how do we make money? We need to throw this out there because we're spending $100 million to make this game, and we need to make our money back right away.
Yeah, I did like you mentioned with Sean that like he was talking about how, you know, people would come at him and pitch a game, and he's like, you know, from the first, you know, a few pages they're talking about their monetization or subscription scheme. He's like, no, fuck this. I want nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And then he wants like that fire brought back into it, you know?
Yeah. Like if you're going into a pitch for a game, you don't want to hear from finance people. Like, why would I need to hear from someone that's involved in finance to tell me how they're going to make all this money and how they're going to change the landscape of gaming? Like, these finance people know nothing about gaming. They probably don't play video games themselves. Like, you want to hear from the people that are in there making the game and creating the character models and creating the story, creating the gameplay. Like, you want to see what differentiates this game from everything else that's out there. And that's what you want to kind of, I think that's what he's trying to see. He's trying to see something different. Yeah. And that's kind of like like I said, like a lost art nowadays, where everything is kind of just like a carbon copy. I think after Fortnite came out, and I think I've said this before, it's like I tend to kind of jumble gaming into pre-Fortnite and post-Fortnite. I think post-Fortnite, everyone is just trying to figure out how do we make our Fortnite? How do we do this? How do we tap into this unlimited money glitch that is Fortnite? Because realistically, it is. It's like for something to be so big and just make so much money is crazy.
Yeah, so in that same interview, he had gone on to mention about how AA games are gone and that AA games can bring the new thing. And I don't really know if there's such thing as like AA games. I think he's kind of referring to like indie games and stuff like that. He's basically saying that, like, you know, they're not as focused on money as much as they are focused on how good the game is. So when people talk about like these indie games and AA games, do you think that there's, like, off the top of your head, can you think of like any indie AA games that are as good as these AAA games that are put out?
Yeah. Black Myth Wukong, Baldur's Gate 3. Like, these are all examples of...
You don't think those are AAA games?
No. I think the thing that separates a AAA and a AA game is the amount of money that was thrown into the game and the size of the entity that is making these games. I think AAA is like your Ubisoft, your Activision, your Naughty Dog, your Sony, your Microsoft, like these big corporations that are making these games that have basically are able to throw unlimited money into these. Yeah. Versus like your indie AA kind of set is like you have a very strict budget because this is all the money that you were able to get. Your team is like maybe 40 people at the most that's working on this game, and you're kind of working nonstop to kind of throw your game out there. I think, and this is why you're kind of seeing a lot of these games that are kind of that are blowing up nowadays are these smaller AA games. Like this year alone, we had Pal World, we had, Helldivers, you had Black Myth Wukong, like all these games that are just shaking the landscape of gaming that aren't coming from a AAA studio.
See, I think like a big issue with it too is that, so like most of those AAA companies are all publicly traded companies, and that they're like almost being forced to pump out these games to please their shareholders.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too, like we said, it's whenever you're tied to that, you kind of tend to focus more on how you're going to make your money back. Eventually people are going to stop buying your game, and you need to figure out how to kind of keep that money flowing. And live service is a big thing now, and everyone's kind of trying to tap into that market and be the next Fortnite.
Yeah, I wish games, that wasn't the main thing that they were worried about. I wish that they would be more focused on like how good the game is, because I mean, it's been a while since I've played a game that kind of like knocked me on my ass for like, damn, like this game's good.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, like for me, the last new game that came out that I played that was like that was Baldur's Gate. And it was, again, like you very rarely see things like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. So this one, you've talked about this game before. An article was put out that Guerrilla Games, or the developers behind Killzone, have stated that they're done with Killzone as a team, as the team kind of wants to create something opposite of Killzone's color palette and something more vibrant like its Horizon series. Now, Killzone titles have been released since 2004 up until 2013 with the Killzone Shadowfall. So you've played Killzone before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you feel about them basically like being like, no more Killzone. We're focusing on more, this, what is it, Lego Horizon or something like that. We want to focus on more bright, colorful games.
I mean, honestly, I love Horizon. Horizon Zero Dawn is one of my favorite games. It's such a fun game, and it's different than anything I've ever played. The environment is awesome. You're kind of like in this post-apocalyptic era where robots have kind of taken over, but your civilization is more prehistoric in a sense. Like it's a mixture of prehistoric and futuristic things. It's like it's hard to explain, but it's such a cool concept, and it's super cool story. Combat is super fun, and the way it looks is awesome. The thing with Killzone is Killzone was like the original kind of Sony shooter. It was almost like made as a competitor to Halo. I think when it first came out, it was like Killzone and Resistance were Sony's kind of big answers to Xbox's Halo and Gears of War. And it's like you kind of went one way because of these games. So it's sad to see that something that was such a big part of Sony's history.
Yeah.
It's kind of just put to rest. Like it's almost like if Nintendo kind of came out and basically just said, hey, we're done with Mario. We're no longer making Mario games, or we're no longer making Zelda games. Like it's one of those crazy things where it's like you see it and you're like, okay, this sucks. And maybe another company will kind of pick up where they left off and rebrand it and make something similar. But who knows?
Well, I mean, it's been 11 years since they stopped making it, but they, from what I never played Killzone, but from what I've read was that Killzone wasn't really as successful as Horizon's been. No.
I think Horizon won both critically and probably financially. It was just way bigger. And again, I think it's just the type of game that it is compared to what Killzone is. It just brings in a larger audience. Like you don't necessarily, like, I think in FPS, it brings a different type of gamer into that game than what like your open adventure RPG style game kind of brings in. I think you get more of a casual crowd coming into this. Like I know people who don't play video games, but they love Horizon because they can just run around and just mine and just pick up herbs and kill robots and ride robots and do all that cool stuff. It has like a mixture of parkour, and then I think the Lego portion of it kind of brings a different world too, because now you're able to kind of expose kids to this world, and they get to see a different outlook in it.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping with them just being like, yeah, no more Killzone, that they kind of putting all their eggs in the basket of Horizon. Hopefully they continue to like make Horizon better and you know, even put out new Horizon games.
Yeah, I haven't played the second one, and I heard it wasn't as good as the first one was, but it's definitely something that I'm going to pick up. Like again, one of the negative things too is that the fact that Sony exclusives tend to kind of come out on PC a year or two down the road.
Yeah.
So it kind of took a while for it to come out on PC. So by the time it did come out, I was kind of busy playing something else. So I just never got to the point where I wanted to buy it and play it. But eventually I definitely am.
Yeah, well, lucky for you, since you like the original Horizon, they got the, I think that's Zero Dawn, the first or second one. Do you know?
So yeah, Zero Dawn is the first one.
So
Forbidden West is the second one.
Let's say Zero Dawn's actually, there's a remastered version coming out on Halloween.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
which is crazy because no. It's crazy because the first game looks so like I don't really necessarily see a need for a remastered version of this game because I don't know when 2020. The Zero Dawn came out in 2020. So it's like for a game to be remastered within 4 years is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like I think the game looks beautiful. The game plays extremely well. So I don't necessarily see a need for a remastered. I think they're just kind of trying to get money from people. I know the biggest reason they're kind of coming out with a remastered is they want to bring this game into the PlayStation 5 Pro marketplace. I don't think it's going to do as well on PC because again, I think people that play on PC are already kind of playing this game at a level that what a PS5 Pro would play it.
Yeah.
But maybe the PlayStation market will. I know, there was a lot of controversy when this game was announced because one of the other games that was kind of announced was, I think it was Days Gone. I can't remember if they're remastering Days Gone or if they're making another version of it or if they're making a sequel to it. Cause this was another game that was kind of shit on when it first came out. And then eventually they fixed a lot of the bugs and now people love the game. So it's crazy to see that they're doing this so soon.
Yeah, 4 years is a little too early to be doing a re-release or remaster version of it.
Yeah, it's kind of just like a cash grab at this point.
So, I don't know, dude. So, there's an article put out that there's 200 Bandai Namco employees were put into these what they called expulsion rooms that are basically designed to bore you out of your mind, like to the point where you accept these severance packages. Now, they're not just like separate rooms in an office, like, you know, like when you get in trouble, go sit in a room that's just in the other room. Like these are like whole ass different floors within the building, almost making it seem like you're just not a part of the team anymore. Now, I didn't know this, but like layoff laws are a lot different in Japan. So the company has been maintaining its innocence while being allowed to have these employees put into these boredom rooms and hope that they just quit and take their severance packages. So now Bandai, they join, again, a long list of other companies right now that have been dealing with massive layoffs. Although I don't know if I could technically use the word layoff, but let's just be honest, like it pretty much is. So what's your thought on like these boredom rooms as they call them? And like, do you think that this would be, do you think layoff rooms could be something that they did, or sorry, boredom rooms could be something like they could implement in the US, or do you think it's just better to lay off people instead of just hoping they quit?
I don't think that would be, I don't think it would work the same way in the US simply because of the culture. I think the Japanese have a much different culture, especially when it comes to work. I think people tend to kind of hold that idea of honor and doing better for your family and kind of pushing for more and more and more.
Yeah.
Where if you're kind of thrown into this room where you're no longer wanted, no longer needed, people kind of tend to feel like they're not being honorable to their family. it's again, like, it's just a much different culture than the US, where I think if that was implemented in the US, people would sit in these rooms for years. Like,
I was
people
going to
would
say,
not
yeah,
care.
yeah. 100%.
It's like you would have
vacation, dude.
Yeah. If I got, I know, like, me personally, like, if I got thrown into an expulsion room, I'd probably be bored out of my mind, but I'd be completely fine with doing nothing. And as long as my pay wasn't necessarily impacted, it wouldn't really affect me the same way that it would affect someone living in a culture of that kind of grind mode, 24/7. Like, Japan work culture is something that's way different than what we kind of encompass. Like, people out there work themselves to death, and it's like something that's actually the government kind of tracks. Like, people die of heart attacks, strokes, or suicide all the time in Japan because they're just kind of overworking. Like, working 80 hours of overtime in a month is very common in Japanese culture. You see videos all the time of, like, people walking around in business attire at 3 a.m. because they're either leaving work or going into work, and it's just a very common thing. So I don't necessarily see it being a thing out here. It's definitely pretty shitty to see, especially because again, I think it's a common practice in Japan because like you said, their culture around firing is just so different to the US. Like, out there, it's I was reading that basically it's so difficult to fire people because the government places such a stigmatism around firing, where it's like, if you're not able to leave them in a better place, you basically can't fire them, because they wouldn't necessarily be providing any value to the community if they were fired. And now it's the government has to pick up the slack, and the government is just completely against that aspect of it. So it's like, unless you can leave them with some crazy severance package, or and you find, like, a specific reason as to why you're fired, like, it's not going to happen. There was something where, like, a news anchor overslept and he missed his schedule 2 days in a row, and they fired him, and they got huge backlash from the government because of it. Yeah, and you think about it, like, here, it's like, if you overslept and you missed your schedule 2 days in a row, you'd be fired, and there'd be no second thought.
So, it's funny how you talk about how you don't think it would work if it came to the end to the U.S. So, it reminds me, have you ever seen the TV show Silicon Valley?
No, I've heard about it, though.
Okay, so it's basically, like, about big tech and stuff like that in the Silicon Valley, and there's a guy in there, they call him Big Head. He was working for this company called Hooli, and which is basically like a Google, right? The company they couldn't fire him or laid him off, so they just made his job non-existent. And what he would do is he just would go up to the roof of the building and just sit there while still getting paid. You know, they're trying to get these people to, like, be bored out of their mind, but like they just kind of took it as like a vacation, and they're just hanging out, grilling up on top of the roof. And because he joined a group of other people that had the same thing happen to them. So I think it's like the same. I think I agree with you. I think if it did come here to the US, I think people would be like, oh, hell yeah, I'll sit in this office and do nothing all day, you know, playing my phone, playing the computer or whatever for 8 hours and still collect a paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it post-COVID when people would prefer receiving unemployment than going back to work, because it was just like, why would you go back to work when you're making the same amount of money, if not more, collecting unemployment checks?
Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense. And again, like, I completely agree with them. It's like, if I was in that same situation and I was making the same amount of money that I'm making now to not work, I would definitely do it.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. So before we get into our last topic, if you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG and on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG. Also be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So Roblox has been in the spotlight recently for failing to protect children, and now they're making some changes for their preteen users in hopes of fixing that. So in reading this, I guess they've added a new type of account that will allow parents to manage their kids whom are on the platform, as well as they're also changing like what preteens exactly what they can access within the game as well. So kids under the age of 13 will have to get parent permission to access certain chat features, and those younger than 9 will have to have parent permission to play certain games that have what they call moderate content. Now, what's your thoughts on Roblox kind of getting this backlash on how poorly that they're protecting children?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's solely on Roblox. I think the internet is a very weird and crazy place. Again, like I did things on the internet when I was a kid that I probably shouldn't have been doing. Going to websites that you probably shouldn't be going to.
Naked Britney Spears.
But at the same time, it's like I think the onus has to kind of come on the parents, and it's like I think yes, having this ability to now, if you're under the age of 13, a parent has to be aware of what's going on and what you're doing is very important. I think you see something super similar with like we should see something super similar with things like Discord, Xbox, Sony, because again, this is possible in every aspect of online interaction. Like it's so easy to go into a chat room or whatever and find out this kid is like 8 years old and just take advantage of them. And again, you see it all the time. Like I think that's one of the biggest, I know if you've ever watched like Scott Hansen, like a lot of these conversations kind of tend to get sparked up in some weird internet chat room. Yeah. And it's like, again, it's because no one knows what these kids are doing. And I think having more visibility into what kids are doing is very, very important. Like, I know my little brother, he's 8 and he was playing Fortnite with a guy who sounded like he was like 20, 25. And I was like, why would, and he was telling me how he knows this guy and he's like he met him on Fortnite. And I was like, why is a 20 something year old playing with an 8-year-old? Like that's super
there's
weird.
No way we'd ever play with a kid that little.
Yeah. Like unless you know them, like unless you're related to them or some sense like that, it's like, there's no reason why, someone that old would want to play with someone that young unless there was some weird stuff going on. So I instantly kind of just like, all right, you need to not play with this guy anymore. And I just turned that off. But yeah, I think just people need to be more aware of what their kids are doing. And it goes with everything. Like people get upset when people get bullied on TikTok and Facebook and all this stuff. And there has to be, the parents have to kind of own up to it a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like as a parent myself, like, I think that it is on the parents, to do a better job of watching over their kids. Cause like we're kind of in like a day and age right now where parents are just handing their kids, a tablet or phone to say, here you go, leave me alone for, a few hours. And it's very easy. I mean, there was that whole thing. I don't even remember a few years ago about YouTube. Like there were like subliminal messages in like some of those YouTube videos where they were getting kids to kill themselves and stuff like that. But like, I don't remember as a kid, like ever having any kind of issues in like games or stuff like that. Like, especially to the point where a parent had to monitor everything we were doing. I mean, do you remember anything like that? I mean, I know we got into the AOL chat rooms and, definitely got into things we weren't supposed to be doing, but I don't think it was ever anything like that bad to the point where like they had to be, really monitoring everything we were doing.
We had things like Club Penguin and other stuff where people were sexually abusing kids and kind of using the game as a way to connect with them. And I'm sure there's probably other games. Like I'm sure it probably happened in World of Warcraft. I'm sure it happened in Xbox lobbies. Again, it's like you meet these people and you just start befriending them, and then all of a sudden you're able to either gain influence on them or take advantage of them. And in a sense, I definitely think it's out there. Like, again, like when I was a kid, I was interacting with people that were way older than me, playing games and not just playing games, but going on forums, cause I think back in the day, like forums were kind of like the wild, wild west in a sense. So if you were like, some weird forum on some like obscure side of the internet, it's
4chan.
not like, 4chan, 8chan, all these other different random forums back in the day that I think you had a forum for everything. And now it's like Reddit is a little bit more controlled and a lot less stuff kind of goes on.
They've done a lot better over the year. Reddit used to not be like that. They used to have, subreddits called like Watch People Die and like just some pretty fucked up subreddits. And they finally, over the past couple of years, started closing a lot of those down.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's good because again, yes, free speech and you should be able to do whatever you want, but at the same time, it's like there's people you can't just let everyone have access to these things because again, kids are very impersonable and like they see something and they're just all of a sudden it's like that's all they want to see and that's all they want to do, and it's like you need to make sure you're protecting the kids as much as possible.
No, I agree. So to kind of hit back on this Roblox thing, so there was an article, just to talk about the child safety. There was a Florida woman who was, I think, like 34 years old who had used Roblox to instruct her 10-year-old daughter to drop her 2-month-old sibling on her head. And by the sound of it, this article, this girl and her sibling were in like a foster home. But I guess like this lady, the girl's mom was like instructing them to do some pretty fucked up stuff, like telling them to like drown the infant in the bathtub, burn it with scalding water and some other pretty nasty stuff. Like, and for me, like as a parent, like myself, like I do monitor like what she goes on. And I do check her messages because I've seen that she's had people message her, or attempt to message her like in the game, but I check them daily to make sure, she's not getting anything to what she shouldn't. So I'm surprised, like, this does kind of fall on like where she's at. They should have really been looking into what was being said. Like there was even a part in there that the girl's mom had told her to spray like aerosol over sheets and like set the sheets on fire while they were sleeping in the house. And when you create these accounts for the kids, it's like they do put their age into their accounts. So you would think that there would have been some kind of safety measure put into the game where you can't access certain things, if your account showed that your age was below, a certain threshold. And I guess, Roblox too is that they're not only being criticized for their child safety features, but they were criticized for exploiting their young developers, as most of them on the platform are under the age of 18. And I guess one of the higher ups there, Roblox, was called out. He had said something basically along the lines of like they wanted to hire kids, and they're like, no. And he's like, oh, it's like a good thing. It's like a reward for them, being good at this stuff. And it's like, I don't know about that. So what do you think Roblox could do better, do you think, to protect the younger generation?
I think kind of like how you said, putting a cap to what content they can access depending on their age. Again, like, yes, you can lie on your age and you could say you're older than you actually are to gain access to these things. And I know I did the same thing when I was a kid to gain access to different websites.
But were you doing that at like 8 or 9 years old, or was it more when you're like 13, 14 years old?
Well, I mean, we didn't have the internet when we were 8 or 9 years old.
Oh, damn!
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't think we really had access to the internet until like we were like maybe like 10, 11, 12, something like that. Like I'm trying to think like when the internet kind of became globally accessible. Like AOL came out like 98, 99 maybe.
Yes, we would have
like
been
2000.
8 or 9 years old, 7, 8 years old. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like whenever that kind of came out, like it's, again, I think we were exposed to it at a much older age than now people are born with it. Like people are able to access these things and kind of understand things way, way quicker than we ever were. And kind of how we talked about it, like influencers play such a big part. Like if you have someone younger and they see their favorite YouTuber playing something or accessing something, they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to go on there and see what it's all about. Like, my little brother was asking me how to get on the dark web, and because he saw a YouTuber, it's like buying weird stuff on the dark web.
Going on the Silky Road or whatever it's called.
I was like, what are you talking about? Like, no, you're not going on that. And it's, again, it's just, it's that thing. It's like they see people do it and they want to do the same things that these people are doing because they think that's cool. They think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, but I wonder too, like how you could really restrict that. Cause I mean, people are, like I said, they are going to be, faking their age to get onto these apps and stuff.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And like I said, I don't think you can necessarily put the onus completely on the company that's providing the content or the platform for them to play games, whether it's Roblox or whatever. Like it's extremely difficult for them to do that. Like, yeah, they can monitor chat logs and do all that stuff and place flags on specific words and then kind of track it down that way. But I know, like, when I was a kid, like I would say some questionable stuff to my friends too. And it's like, I probably still say some questionable stuff to my friends. And again, it's like, if you're flagging every single thing like that, like I know it's like a common meme where people say like, if the Xbox chats ever came out, like everyone would be cooked basically. It's like, if you had like some of these lobbies and you heard what people were saying back in the day, like everyone would be canceled because again, you would say and do things that like, just because you were a part of it and that's what everyone was doing. And it's very similar to now. It's like you have kids that are doing things because again, that's what kids do.
Yeah.
I think it's again, like the parents have to kind of like how you're doing. You're checking your daughter's logs all the time and seeing what she's doing and seeing who she's interacting with because it's like it's your responsibility to do that. And I think parents kind of need to take that responsibility and make sure it's like, okay, my kid's not in some weird Roblox lobby talking to adults and you just want them to go away because you want peace of mind.
Well, unfortunately, dude, that's kind of where we're at. I mean, you see these kids like on tablets, dude, and they're like 5 years old, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely a different world.
So to basically sum it up is that can't put all the blame on the company that if you're a parent, then you need to parent your damn kid. You know, you can't expect them to be little angels with everything.
Yeah.
All right, so some upcoming games, man. You got Phasmophobia is coming to the Xbox and PlayStation October 29th. And Dragon Age The Veilguard's coming out October 31st. I also made mention of this earlier. Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered is also coming out on October 31st, a whole 4 years after the original one. So looking through Steam, there are some pretty good games on there right now that are on sale. You got the Hogwarts Legacy is 70% off at $17.99. You got NBA 2K5 is 30% off at $48.99. No Man's Sky is 60% off at $23.99. And Risk of Rain 2 is 67% off at $8.24. And that's it for today's episode of NoBS. If you enjoyed the unfiltered conversations, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube at NoBS Podcast GG, and also stay connected with us on X at NoBS Podcast GG for all the latest updates and hot takes. Catch us on TikTok as well at NoBS Podcast GG. We appreciate you listening, and we'll be back next week with more straight talk. NoBS.